Thank you. Hello. So how nice is it to be in a room where you can say you work in UX and you know that you're not going to spend the next 5 minutes explaining what that is? So if you've been here today and experienced this morning at all, you know that UXers, we really like to experiment, and we particularly like to experiment on people. And I hate to break it to you, but you're people. So we're starting today with a little bit of an experiment, so I'd like everybody to please stand up. Awesome. So we've got a full room here, and what I'd like you to do is, if you currently work in a UX field, so the core components of your role are UX focused, I'd like you to keep standing. So we still have a heap of people standing. How nice does that feel? Because that doesn't happen very often. But things haven't been like that for very long. So what we're going to do today is a little bit of time travel, and we're going to go back 5 years. So have a think about where you were in 2011. Were you doing a UX role 5 years ago? If you were, keep standing. Otherwise, you can take a seat. That's a dramatic change. So that's 5 years. What about 10 years? There's a lot more. Right. What about 15 years? Where were you in 2001? We still have some standers. All right, what about 20 years? 1996. Anybody? Dave? So the next question is, were you in New Zealand when you were doing that? No. Right. So 20 years ago, nobody's standing. Well, one standing. Were you in New Zealand?
No, I was not in New Zealand.
Ah.
But you didn't say.
Yes, please. So as you can see, 20 years ago, for some of us, 20 years isn't that long a time ago. For some of you, if you weren't born or you were in primary school, just don't tell people, we don't want to know. But 20 years is not very long for an industry at all. And what that means for us is we're really young. And in New Zealand, we're even younger. So I'm a UX researcher. And what I do every single day is have a look at what's happening, why is it happening, and what can we do about it. So today we're looking at the future of the UX industry. So I can't take you back through the history of UX for everybody, but I can take you back to where I started, which is in 1999. So in 1999, I got my first job as a junior usability analyst. And I got that in a usability lab. And for a lot of people, that's probably a really foreign concept. But a usability lab was somewhere where all your usability, and it was so long ago that that's what we were calling it, it was usability, but we had designers, we had instructional designers, we did research. We did the whole gambit, but we were still referring to it as usability. So we outsourced everything to the lab. And inside the lab, we had dedicated spaces to do focus groups, we had dedicated spaces to do one-on-ones, we had an eye tracking lab. It was awesome. It was so cool. And the thing about it, we had these people who worked there, and the people who worked there all had PhDs in HCI. So these guys were the UX gods, because they knew what they were talking about. They were serious prestige. So this was the golden age of UX. Not because of what we were doing, but because just the prestige. So we had just an amazing ability to do work for people. So we would have companies who came in who had a problem, or they wanted to innovate, and they wanted information. So they would come to us, and we would sit around a table, and we would have one of our UX gods, who were all doctors, and they were all middle-aged white guys, and they all came from academia. These were the sorts of guys that did white papers for fun. So it tells you a lot about them. But we would sit around a table, and we'd sit the client down, and they'd tell us what they wanted. And we'd immediately go, so that's who you think your target audience is. That's great. We think you need a bit more research on that. We'll go and do some research. It'll take 2 weeks. Then we come back and we go, okay, we know who your target audience is now. We don't know what they really want, so we'll go and do another 2 weeks worth of research. And during that research, we'd bring people into the lab, and it was glorious because we'd have the mics and we'd have the cameras and we'd have the 2-way mirrors, and we'd bring the customers in and we'd bring the clients in, and they'd be escorted to these big leather armchairs, and there'd be canapes and champagne while they watched these sessions. It was a serious event. And we'd go and we'd do the research, and after the research we'd go to the clients and go, those were really good sessions. We'll let you know what they're about in 2 weeks. And we would go and we would write reports. And our reports were written by the analysts, who then went to the doctors, who added their bits. And then they went to the content editors to make them beautiful. And then we went and got them professionally bound. And then we took them back to the clients, and we went, wash one glorious. They were fabulous. These were the best reports you had ever seen in your life. And we gave them, and they went away, and we moved on to the next thing. And after a few months, we went back. Nothing had happened. It's like, I don't know, it was great. Everything we told them was so good. And you talk to them, and after a while, the penny finally dropped for researchers. We weren't very smart. It took us a while to figure out that it was taking us 8 to 10 weeks to get all this research back to people. By the time we delivered it, we were completely out of context. The project had moved on, the people had disbanded. It was pointless. Nobody was even reading our beautiful reports. That was a little bit of a heartbreak. So there was a little bit of a revolution. And everybody's revolution comes at different times. But for me, mine came in 2006. And that's when I got my first job with Deloitte in Melbourne in a technology arm. And they brought me on as a UX specialist to bring up their customer service. And they said to me, it's great, everything that you've done is awesome. We really want to get on board with that. But we're moving to Agile. So you're going to do it in 2 weeks. And I said, no. You can't do it. You cannot get the same quality in 2 weeks that we're doing in 10 weeks. Which is true, you can't. But what followed on to that was a whole lot of UX yoga, because we experimented. Had to go out and trial a whole lot of different things to make it work. And what that has meant over the last 10 years is a lot of experiments, a lot of failed experiments. But it's got to me to where we are now. So I work with BNZ Digital, and we have 190 staff, probably 195 by the time I get back, growing really rapidly. And we have a really big customer focus. So we look after the public website, internet banking, and mobile banking for our retail and our business customers. So we have a whole lot of teams. And it's my job to make sure that all those teams have a UX focus throughout all of their activities. I don't do all the UX. My team doesn't do all the UX. That's not our role. Our role is to enable the teams to do their own UX. And as a researcher, that's scary as heck. So what I do is 2 main roles. I still do act as a practitioner, but mostly I facilitate. I facilitate lean UX sessions. I facilitate lots of other types of sessions, and a main component of my role is training. I now train, most of the time, people to go out and how to do interviews, how to talk to customers, how to do co-design sessions. And you will be amazed that you don't need a UX god to go and talk to people and get good results. I have developers and testers who go out and talk to customers, and they do a good job. It's really interesting. But when you come from a research background, that's quite confronting. So I'll tell you a little bit about some of the activities we do to make sure that we have a customer focus. So one thing we do for our retail team is we have customers coming in every single week. So on a Thursday at 10, 12 and 2, we have retail customers that are coming in. So in 5 minutes, a customer will be going into B&Z Digital. And what they will be doing is sitting down with some of the retail teams. So those customers can be used for co-design, they can be used for usability testing, they can be used for discovery sessions. Absolutely every purpose. We know that they're coming in. Quite often, we don't know until Wednesday afternoon or potentially Thursday morning what we're going to be doing with those customers. So it's very short time frames. And with our Agile teams, they still don't have enough work to cover off a full hour session. So we timeshare them. So we can have 2 projects or even 3 projects using the same customer for different purposes on a day. And what we do is we do these 3 sessions every Thursday, and at the end, from 3 o'clock to 3:30, we do a debrief with the teams. The teams come in, we talk about what happened during the sessions, the teams leave at 3:30, we're done. There's not one bit of documentation that comes out of it. What does happen is the teams decide for themselves what they want to do, and they go and put it straight into their backlogs. So if you think about those lovely reports that we used to make, they don't exist anymore. So what does that mean for us as a future? So, I don't know. Is the answer. What I can tell you is, I think our future is going to be quite different. There's definitely still a place for big research projects, and what we get out of doing these weekly one-on-one sessions, which are so fast, is the ability to go back and show our team leaders where we think there's red flags. And it's a lot easier to get a bigger budget to do more research if you've already had 6 customers fall over at the same point. So we still do big research, but we're doing things in much shorter time frames. We also do, if a team gets blocked and we want to do research, we don't wait for customers anymore. So one of the things we do is guerrilla testing. And we go out, we will get the team down if they've been blocked and they can't work. We will get the team together, we will spend an hour working out what questions they need to have answered, and we will hit the streets. We will go out and spend an hour talking to as many people as we can in an hour to get the answer to those questions. So as far as our participants being targeted, they're not. We don't even know who they are. We don't record any data about who we've talked to. Really confronting as a researcher. But what we get is enough information that after an hour, we can come back, refocus our team, and they can still have something to work on until we can do some more research. So rather than having a team blocked for 2 weeks, we've got a team moving within 3 hours. So faster feedback, faster activities, less prescriptive. We're not spending as much time getting the perfect person to come into these sessions. And we're doing it much, much more often. So it's continual feedback that's going into these project teams. And for me, as a UX practitioner, I'm moving to that trainer and a facilitator, as is my team. And what we're doing is we're enabling people, no matter what their role is, to start doing UX activities themselves. So you have a day and a half of talks. And I'd like you to keep in mind when you're listening to the talks, 3 things. We're a really young industry and we haven't got it all together yet. We know that. And we've changed a lot in a really, really short period of time. And we're going to continue changing. And what this means is there's no one way to do UX. So my advice to you is to experiment. Failing is okay. What we want to do is to learn from those failures and do another experiment. Find something that really makes you passionate, really you enjoy and works for you personally, works for your team and works for your company, and really embrace it. Thank you.